Hey fellow freelancers, Johnny5 Alive here, and in today's Anthem video, I want to have a discussion around the Anthem's endgame, as well as the current amount of content in the game overall. Is it enough, just enough, or lacking entirely? So stay tuned, and let's get into it. So there's a lot I want to cover in this video, but I think it's good to start with the endgame and Strongholds. Strongholds are Anthem's version of dungeons. If you're not aware, Anthem currently only has 3 of these Strongholds total. This is quite surprising for me to discover, as it does seem like a really low number when compared to other games. However, when playing the VIP demo, I must have run the Tyrant Mines over 30 times on hard mode between all 4 javelins. And for me, the more you play it, the better it gets. These strongholds are really well polished and have a great set of objectives. Tyrant Mines, for example, has 4 major sections, 2 orb collecting phases with loads of enemy spawns to deal with, a defense wave, and to end it off, a really massive boss battle, which on Grandmaster 1 difficulty is rumored to be a half-an-hour boss fight. This almost gives you the sense of a raid when compared to other games' dungeons. You quickly become familiar with the enemy spawns and various strategies for group play from checkpoint to checkpoint. This does give me the feeling of trying to master each checkpoint with 3 friends, to then go on and achieve greatness for Grandmaster 3. So I do feel the quality of replayability is certainly there. Multiply that by 3, and I do honestly feel like 3 isn't all that bad, considering I enjoy these strongholds far more than any non-memorable dungeons that I've played in other games such as Destiny 2. Sometimes these co-op games actually suffer from a large volume of dungeons due to the developers shelling out quantity rather than quality, and the quality suffers and the dungeons end up feeling like aimless chores. I did not feel this way from Anthem and can honestly say I'm excited to master these 3 strongholds in and out and memorize them like the back of my hand. If there were dozens of these at lower quality, I don't think that statement would hold as strong. Not to mention loot tables are completely random, meaning people would calculate the easiest dungeon to clear in the short amount of time and simply farm that over and over, because the loot would be no different from any of the 3 strongholds. So I do hope all 3 of these are somewhat equal in balance, or the dev team has implemented some sort of bonus for queuing up for random dungeons, even though there are only 3. So personally, I do think 3 is a decent for launch, but I do hope to see new stronghold releases every 2 to 3 months. Because of the quality of these strongholds, I do think 2 to 3 months is a reasonable development time and would expand the game an additional 4 to 6 strongholds for a total of 7 or 9 by this time next year. And I do think that is plenty. However, I'm unsure if the devs have their sights on new strongholds right away. During one of the developer live streams, someone asked the question, will Anthem get raids? The devs responded that they were working on some sort of aspirational content for post-launch. So what does this mean exactly? Is this type of aspirational content free play driven, or another instance-based dungeon like Strongholds? Could we expect to see something much harder than the current Strongholds, with maybe some sort of weekly lockout, much like raids in other games? If that is true, it's certainly more exciting than getting a new stronghold for sure, but that does mean additional strongholds could quite possibly be on the back burner, so I wonder, are they both being developed simultaneously? Personally, I would love to see this new raid introduced alongside with a new stronghold, followed up with 2 additional strongholds over time before we see another raid. This way we would get 3 new strongholds, then a raid in each content cycle. Do you guys think that's asking for too much? Is that not enough? What do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. So aside from strongholds, we have legendary contracts and free play content, which acts as your sort of daily and weekly tasks that most games have. If you're unaware, legendary contracts, from my understanding, will work like this. There are 3 different faction members who can give you a variety of contracts unique to their faction. The designers have decided to make hundreds of mini quests specific to those factions, so when you pick up a contract, it's going to give you a sort of 3-part quest, which randomly pulls each part of the quest from the pool of hundreds of designed quests, essentially making each single contract unique with a ton of replayability. You may get one part of the 3-part quest that you're familiar with or have done a few times, but chances it will take a very long time before you are familiar with every single part of the contract, and new ones are fairly easy to develop and add into into that pool. I personally really enjoy this approach to repeatable quests, as it does add a bit of randomness to tone down the repetitive nature of repeatables. The fact that they are done in open free play areas also gives you a reason to dive back into the open world and explore. If not for this, once your story is complete, you would likely have only seen the inside of Fort Tarsus and dungeons, which would get stale really quickly. So I really like the balance between free play and dungeons for endgame, and do personally think that it is just enough. So long as new content is released at a reasonable rate, I don't think we have anything to worry about, considering the quality of the content is certainly a polished AAA experience. So for the next topic I want to jump into is one I haven't seen a lot of discussion on yet, and that is the amount of items on the loot table. From my understanding and what I have seen, it appears that there are only one version of every item, but with guns there seem to be three. For example, there are your abilities such as the Ranger's Seeking Missile, and a Masterwork or Legendary version which has a special ability effect, which we call affixes. But I haven't seen any other versions of an ability which say a different name to it and have a different affix to it. Meaning, as far as we know, there are only one version of every ability in the game. Of course, there are different rarities of that item, but the Masterwork and Legendary being the unique ones that have different affixes, we are still unsure if there are different variations of them. Again, this is speculation, but if true, we are limited in the amount of possible builds, and I personally would like to see a handful of various ability types and bonuses for every single ability. This to me is more concerning than the lack of dungeons and strongholds, as so long as there are multiple versions of items to seek out, you can find yourself playing even longer and further. So same could be said for the weapons. There are 9 different weapon types: hand cannons, machine pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, marksman rifles, light machine guns, sniper rifles, and your heavy weapons for the Colossus, autocannons, and grenade launchers. From my testing, it seems that there are 3 types of named weapons for each loot table for each of the weapons, and only 2 for the heavy weapons. For example, hand cannons have the Barrage, Resolution, and Blastback named weapon types. Each have a different playstyle to them and would have their own unique affix bonus when achieving a Masterwork or Legendary version. So from my understanding, that means there are only 3 possible unique hand cannons in the game and 3 possible affixes between the 3 of them. And of course, they also have many possible different bonus property rolls for each one. So while each weapon is somewhat unique in properties, they are all generally the same in terms of affixes. So when everyone is finally familiar with the endgame itemization, when you tell your buddy, hey, I got this Masterwork Barrage pistol, they should instantly understand what it is, how it plays, and what affix that it has, leaving the only question being, hey, what type of bonus rolls did you get on it? So to bring this back around and make sense of it all, what I'm seeing here is a somewhat controlled loot table with a very restricted amount of named weapons and abilities on it, much like how Diablo's Legendary system works, but a much smaller loot table overall. The pros being that you will quickly become familiar with all the different named weapons based on the fact that there is roughly only a total of 25 named weapons in the entire game. This again is speculation and not confirmed, and it's based off the loot tables we have seen in the demo and the live streams. There could also be an entire list of unique to named weapons for crafting, which are separate from the loot tables that drop randomly in the game. This could bring up the number much higher. So to me, this is actually a pro, as other games such as Borderlands have such a complete true randomization, it is almost impossible to ever memorize or identify a weapon that is near and dear to you. So for an example, when a legendary Falcrum SMG drops for me, I instantly know what it is and I'm excited to see what the rolls are on it. You quickly become familiar and well educated in the loot tables within the game, making you a walking Wikipedia of knowledge. The cons to this system, however, come down to the fact we may only have 3 possible affix properties per weapon type, giving us a limited number of set build opportunities. For example, you may really enjoy the epic version of the Warden, but the Masterwork ability that it comes with might be better for a specific build which you're not currently playing. And maybe the Hammerhead Assault Rifle affix is more suitable to the current build that you're using, which sort of creates this predetermined or suggested build style. styles, meaning it won't always be about what you like most, but what weapon affix ends up filling out your build the best, taking away a small piece of player choice. Again, this is speculation, and I would love to dive deeper into this loot table system once we reach endgame to really confirm my thoughts on this subject matter. What we should take away from this topic, however, is the fact that Anthem doesn't have a true random loot table for endgame, but rather fixed named items with various rarities for each, which does mean some cookie cutter builds will arise, and not every build will be 100% truly unique. It's only a matter of time before people figure out the optimal itemization for a particular javelin. Whereas true randomized loot and an endless amount of random affixes would mean some people get lucky and are able to create some wild and zany, unique builds. These would be almost impossible to replicate because of the random nature of the loot tables. I think there are both pros and cons for each, but my concern overall is that Anthem's endgame may come down to going through the motions to fill the items required for the ultimate build for your current javelin, which is a scary thought, as the whole point of these games is to get crafty and come up with your own unique and interesting builds. But that is only possible if the loot table is very, very large and has a wider range of affix randomizations. Again, this is something we will still have to wait and see and then take a closer look at. But from all the concerns there are discussing endgame, I didn't see this part of itemization being looked at closer, which to me is the most important topic. As if there is a lack of actual content, if that content is good enough, you will always have the endless grind for the perfect loot to give you endless enjoyment. However, if the loot table is small with fixed affixes per named item, suddenly that item grind becomes less interesting. So again, from what I've seen online and what we've seen with the abilities and the traits, it does seem that the affixes are fixed to the name of the item. We're going to have to wait and see if affixes are randomized, such as if you get a frag grenade, there could be 10 different possibilities of affixes you get from it. But as far as we know right now, it's set to a specific affix, and they can always add in more later. In the current set of named weapons and abilities listed in the game, if it is fixed, it is set, and there's only different rarities for each named item, it does bring up a concern here, like I mentioned earlier, guys, as it could create a lot of cookie cutter builds and less customization overall. And to me, that is the biggest endgame concern. As I said, there's nothing worse than just trying to fill out the items you need for your build, compared to so much randomization where you can get creative and completely unique from another person. So for me, in terms of endgame, I'm not really concerned about the amount of content there is, because with other games in the past, we're used to doing the same content over and over and over again. As long as we enjoy the gameplay, the minute-to-minute, moment-to-moment gameplay, and the cooperation involved, and that is very fun and engaging, then it doesn't matter a whole lot. What does really matter is the loot that you're getting. Is it unique? Is it interesting? And does it have you continually going back into the game to try to create a unique build that no one else has done? Is that possible? Because if it is not, then we might find ourselves falling a little bit bored with that grind, knowing that we're just going to end up being a similar build to everybody else who's trying to complete the cookie cutter javelin build of your choosing. So those are my current concerns for endgame. I do think there is a good amount of content. I hope to see new content dropping in terms of dungeons and raids every 2 to 3 months. I don't know if that's asking for too much. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts down below. What would you like to see for endgame? How would you like to see the itemization work? Do you think true randomness would be good? Do you think more weapon types and affixes would be good? Or do you like the way it is currently with a set amount of named items? Love to read your guys' thoughts, so post them down below. And that's going to do it for me here today. If you guys enjoyed the show, please check out my Patreon page. You can support it further there. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye now.